Tēnā koutou, family, friends, colleagues gathered here today. 1 week ago today, my nephew, standing there in his uniform, gave a eulogy for his mother, who was also my sister. Now, he was the RSM of the New Zealand SAS, and he presented his eulogy more like a military briefing. It was very effective. However, that's not my experience. I've been a teacher for 50 years or so, so I have my teaching notes here. So my tuakana was born to our parents, Louis Hereward and Edina Hengster. Some of you hearing the names Louis Hereward wonder who I'm talking about. Because he was never known by those names, he was always Bub or Bubba. Okay, Dad's ancestry included a British whaling captain, that's where the Hengster name comes from. I've seen it written somewhere that he was a naval captain, but no, he wasn't. He was a whaler. Also in his ancestry was a Scottish, Irish, Australian bridge builder and boat builder. That's the McRobert side of our family. Māori side, whānau Apanui and Taranaki iwi, but also connections to Te Aitanga Mahaki and Ngāti Kahungunu. Mum, ancestry again, I suppose, descended from an English navigator, so another seaman, and her tribal affiliations were Tūwharetoa, Ngāti Hinamanu, which is a branch of Ngāti Kahungunu, and also up and down the Whanganui River, Ngāti Hau, Ngāti Pāmoana, Ngāti Hauiti. So, as my friend Monty Morrison says, like him, our family are a bit of a fruit salad when it comes to iwi. So, as many of you know, we were raised on the farm, which is across the creek, over the paddocks, and up the hill. I've talked about iwi just recently, just a moment ago, but the people that were most important to our brother were the people from this valley. All right? As kids, when we were growing up, we referred to the Horohoro Valley as our end and the other end. Our end is Rongomai. The other end was Kearo. That's the way we thought of it as kids. Throughout his life, the most important people to Ken, as I said, were the people of this valley. This marae, which the land for which was, or put it another way, we were allowed to build, our parents were allowed to build this marae thanks to Ngāti Kea, Ngāti Tuara, and this place was very important to Ken. Give you a bit of insight of what it was like to grow up with Ken. As I told the family last night, my first memory was as a child, probably 2 or 3, was Ken pulling me out of Lake Rotoiti at Lotara Marae, where you were supposed to be looking after me, and I must have taken off and went off the end of the jetty. And what is still clear in my mind, as I said, it's my first memory, was all the bubbles that came up when he jumped into the water beside me and grabbed me. So that was a good start for our relationship. At school, wasn't a good fit for my big brother. I can imagine his teachers in those days thought of him as a bit of a haututu, These days, he would be put in a class for gifted children. He was that bright. So, as I said, his early schooling wasn't the best place for him, and that's one reason why my dad sent him off to Tipene. Bit more discipline, and actually he did very well at Tipene, he excelled. That big brain of his got to work. However, school still wasn't his place, so he made it quite clear to my parents that he didn't want to go back there. He got school C early. The principal was very keen for him to continue schooling, but he'd had enough of that. So he left school, ended up driving bulldozers over at Tihoi. He was smart enough, even though he was only in his teens, he could do his own surveying, cut his own roads and so on. After he'd had enough of that, he joined our big brother in the precinct works at Pomona in Hastings. Then he decided at the age of 20 he'd join the army. So he joined the army and off he went to Malaya chasing communist insurgents around in the jungle. Came back from Malaya back to the freezing works for a brief time. Then the army called again and away he went to Malaya for a second time. Came back from Malaya and finally decided after he came back the second time, I'll go to university. So off he went to Victoria University. Worked hard, I suppose, because he was a bit of an older student. Got through in a shorter time than most people do. The other thing he acquired apart from his degree at Victoria was a wife. His first wife, Nikki. They returned to Rotorua. Ken had a junior partnership in a law firm. Unluckily or luckily, depending on which way you look at it, his old partner passed away. So Ken ended up owning the practice. So luckily for him, he had some strong women to help him, like Georgina Tehehu, who was his junior partner, Kath Green, who ran his office, and if any of you ever went into that office in the past, you would have almost needed a breathing mask. Well, no, we're into breathing masks today, but Ken was a chain smoker. So his office, and more particularly his little green Renault car, was like an ashtray. When you got into his car, it was really Ken and Nikki raised their 4 children. Nikki was keen on gardening, so Ken and I and Nikki ended up being tomato growers, as well as me being a teacher, Ken being a lawyer. We were growing tomatoes out at Rotokawa for a couple of years. It was interesting. Long hours for both of us. Unfortunately, Nikki, who was a sufferer of asthma, passed away. And Ken, he lost a bit of interest for a while. So, then one day I ran into Darky Webby in the street. He said, "Hey boy, that's Darky. Have you met Ken's new woman?" I said, "No, who's that?" And he said, "Oh man, beautiful, clever, and young." And you lived up to every one of those things. But that was Darky. So, I forgot to mention Ken, while he was practicing law, he'd been asked to join the Maori Land Court First time he was asked, he turned it down. Second time he took it on, and as we all know, we've had all the talk about him in the court, left and right, black and white, down the middle. One thing they didn't mention was that he always liked to be right. And then in discussions we had, you have a disagreement and it wasn't settled, it might be months later. Come up, I told you. This is how it is. So after those years in the Maori Land Court, when he retired, came around home and he says, "Hey, what tax rate are you on?" And I said, "Oh, 33 cents in the dollar." "Oh, you know what? I get this pension, 64 grand tax free." "Why are you telling me this, you cheeky son?" That sort of thing was apparent throughout his life. For a short while he was living with our Uncle George Tyre and Auntie Babe. You might not know he was a bit of a poet. Mind you, my Auntie Babe didn't like this poem. It's got a bit tricky bit in it. So our auntie said her name was Anihera Rose MacDonald originally. Anihera Rose. So he made up this little ditty. Anihera Rose sat on a tack. Anihera Rose. And also while he was down there, Uncle George wanted him to come and help with the docking. So the lambs are already in the pen. Ken was in his bedroom and he was lying on the bed. And Uncle George said, "Come on boy, we're going to go and do some docking." Ken said, "Oh, I can't. My heart. Maybe now he was having a bit of a heart attack or something. And Uncle George, oh, gee. So left him there. Ken was lying there in bed with all his books. He was having a ball. All the other guys were saying, "Oh, he's all tito man." And they were quite right. Now Uncle George, who was a very funny man, he used to love, and years later, if Ken was present, he would do that. My heart. That continued. I remember at our niece Nette and Nathan's wedding, during a lull, all of our family were sitting together and he came over and said, hey, you fellas, I'm now the Chief Justice of Niue. I said, oh yeah, that's pretty good. He waited while we made our comments and then he said, well actually I'm the only justice. Yeah, talking about Niue and Rarotonga. I think all of our family mostly have spent time there thanks to Ken's generosity at home and on the lagoon in Rarotonga. That's a special place for all of us. I think I'll conclude with HK, as we called him. That name Heta, well, it comes down through my mum's family. Ken was the fourth Heta in the family. We have a first cousin Seth. We have Heta the sixth there somewhere, and a grandson, Ken's grandson Seth. So Heta, Seth, and seven of them. But as I said, we called him HK. He was generous with his time, and when needed he was quite happy to give a bit of sneaky financial assistance to people who needed it with no fuss. So that's the way we remember her. Kia ora.
I just had another short reading from Paul's first letter to Timothy. Ka hore hoki he mea I mauri a mai e tātou ki te ao. A he mea mārama noa tēnei. E kore a hei te mua atu e tātou te tahi mea. Nā I hoa I homai, nā I hoa I tango. Kia whakapai ngea te ingoa o I hoa. We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And that's how it is for each and every one of us. We are born with nothing, and we leave this world with nothing. So what is the purpose of our life? What do we leave behind? And it's just amazing, our tangihanga, right from the first night, we heard all the call it eulogies if you like, the life of King. And that's what he leaves behind. For us to remember him by. So we're very grateful to be here, to hear, especially through the evenings and the kōrero. Tāua te Māori, we don't really need to have eulogies, but it's just wonderful that someone can get up and talk about his life. But we heard what he had achieved throughout his time here on earth during our tangihanga. Because each person got up and gave their eulogy and their knowledge about Ken and what they did together. And that's what he leaves for us, each and every one. That we will always remember him by. And we're grateful for his life. Because at times like this, the service is a celebration of his life, not his death, but a celebration of his life. And so we are here now to finally lay him to rest at his last resting place, but continue to remember all that he left us and all the things that he enjoyed throughout his life. Anō reira koe nei, ka mihi atu kia nei e kōrero ana mōnu, mai te wae, I haria mai ei ki konei takoto ai. Ka rongo ake nei I ngā kōrero nunu I utaina nei ki rung ki atu. Anō reira huri no, tēnei te mihi atu, tēnei te mihi atu. E iho a te hungi o mātou, e te kaiti te hungi o mātou. E iho a te hungi o mātou, e tō mātou matu te rangi. Ia tapu tau ingoa, kia tāpai tau rangatire kia me kia tau I pai ai, me te whenua, kia rite anō ki tō te rangi. O mai kia mātou ai anei, he tau mo mātou mo tēnei rā. Muru o mātou hara, me mātou hoki e muru nei o te hungai haranga kia mātou. Aua hoki mātou e kaua ia, e ngari hokaoringi a mātou I te kino. Nau hoki te rangakiretanga, te kaha me te gloria, ake. Amen. E te atua kahalawa kei a koe e noho ana ngā wairua o te hunga e hare atu nei I konei rungi te ari. E noho hari ana anō I a koe ngā wairua o te hunga whakapono. Ko wātea I te taimaha o te tinana. Tēnei mātou te whakapai atu nei ki a koe mou I pai ki te tango atu. E tō tātou rangatira I roto I ngā he